Okay, with that we are back in session, and we will now be considering item 3, the consideration of amendment number 2 to the contract for consultant services with Townsend Public Affairs to extend the agreement for grant writing services through June 30th, 2020. Report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The city has been working with Townsend Public Affairs since March of 2018, and we do have some grants in the process right now that are pending completion that we would like to continue working with the organization on. And so for that reason, we are recommending that we move forward on approving an amendment to extend their agreement for another year. However, in that time, we also would like to move forward with a request for proposals to evaluate what the city should do moving forward as far as having a firm that does grant writing and lobbying. So we may look at that in the future. However, we are recommending an extension so that we can work on the grants that we do have pending. One of them is a major parks grant that is due on August 5th. And Richard is here to give you a progress report on the work that we have been doing together over the last few years. Also, we did make some amendments to this amendment, and that we clarified a few aspects of the communication that the consultant will have with the city manager before doing any legislative advocacy on behalf of the city in regard to the grant work that they're doing. So that would be run by the city manager before they go ahead and do any outreach to legislators for us in the future. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions now or after Mr. Harmon's report.
So anybody have any questions before Mr. Harmon's report?
Yeah, I actually do.
We don't want to hear it. Okay.
Oh, well, let hear his report, then I'll make my comment.
After his report?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make my comment after his report.
Okay.
You got it. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Pleasure to be here. Richard Harmon with Townsend Public Affairs. I'll run through this quickly. Some of it you've seen before. Some of these are just updates. I know you got a lot of stuff on your agenda tonight. So this is a list. We'll be going through each of these just super quickly. I'll probably start consolidating this first page from now on, but if we go to the next slide. Look at some of the current activities. I mention the Fresno COG TD program once more, only because when I was last here, I think my last presentation was April-May time frame when we had just come from scoring committee. But since that last presentation, I think the executive board of Fresno COG took action to finally approve that. So I have this here just to highlight. I think it was on May 30th, but I could be wrong when the executive board took that action.
Took a while.
It had just happened since the last presentation. And there is I don't think I provided it before, but there is a copy behind the presentation of that application to the Fresno COG TOD. It wasn't lengthy. We had submitted, this would have been, I want to say the February-March timeline, to the Department of Alcoholic Beverages Control grants for law enforcement. This was to be similar to the tobacco enforcement program that we were successful with, to provide basically overtime funding for officers to go after illegal alcohol sales to minors. We submitted on March 29th. We were notified we didn't receive it. They tend to award grants geographically, so when I spoke to the department, to ABC, after this, they said the grants in our region went to Fresno County, Fresno City, and Clovis City were the three that got funding. And a big piece of their scoring and how they make the determination is basically number of folks who are going to be impacted by the funding in the programs. And granted, if you're a big city, you're going to see more of that. They try to do more geographic distribution, but it does come down sometimes to just numbers of people who are going to be impacted by your program. So they gave us a couple pieces of technical advice in terms of highlighting coordination with the DA. So any of those activities we do, the DA would be on board with prosecuting those. So they give us a couple little technical tidbits that may help us when we apply next year. So next slide. So the big one we're working on right now is what we've been talking about most of the year, is the statewide park program round 3. This is for the Rockwell Pond project. Applications are due August 5th. I think on the consent calendar this evening, was the resolution authorizing application to this program. So Mr. Kirchner and I are working on this, get to be best friends again over the next couple of weeks before it's due. The next one we're watching out for is the Proposition 1 Stormwater Grant Program. This one has been delayed almost 2 years already. Been waiting for it. This is an implementation fund. We were told to be spring of this year, then we were told to be summer this year. Now it looks like it'll be fall. But when we talk about our recharge basins and projects like that, this is the one. This is a statewide competition as opposed to the IRWM, which is a regional. There's more money in this. It's statewide. So we're looking for them to open that up. But at this point, fall. U.S. Department of Agriculture, this is looking at, I mean, you've talked tonight about economic development, downtown revitalization, what can be done. Most of the funding for those sorts of activities, apart from what CDBG can do, is what USDA can do from its programs. They have many different, small sort of niche programs that help with business attraction, retention, things like that. So, in fact, I was just speaking to the chamber about this. We're going to be talking to the chamber, but we're talking this week internally about the different programs that USDA offers. We have a regional representative who's offered to come in and help walk through some of those once we have some ideas. But we could do like revolving funds for small businesses, things like that.
Is it mostly a loan program? USDA mostly
Some are.
loans?
Some are. They like to do the loan programs because they're low interest rate loans. There is some grant funding, but the grant funding is pretty small.
It's usually matching. or
So
usually
it's
10,000
pretty
or-
competitive. So, but the loans are really cheap.
On that Prop 1 stormwater grant program, it's statewide. This is the statewide component that opens up.
Mhm.
There's more money, but is there more competition?
There is, except regionally with like the IRWM, I mean, there was literally, I want to say $2 to $3 million. So even the size of our projects that we had for the stormwater, for the recharge basins,
For the conveyors?
almost exceeded what the regional
The whole
entity had for
allotment
us.
For COGS.
So yes, it's a bigger pot. There is more competition. However, at least we know there's capacity to fund multiple projects out of it. One more, sorry. Tobacco grant program. We did get funding from the California Department of Public Health for the tobacco grant enforcement. That was for overtime activities for officers. This is one through State Department of Justice, the Attorney General's office. We submitted this application Friday. Ultimately, when it went in, it was slightly more than 500,000. But this one would be to fund an actual officer for 5 years. So it's a little bit of a different take. We're trying to augment those CDPH, the Department of Public Health funding, with an actual officer. And so this officer would not only do the tobacco-related enforcement, but would help us with some of those sort of trigger activities that contribute to youth tobacco use, such as alcohol use, cannabis, homelessness. So this would be an officer that actually could do follow-up on enforcement of the tobacco. So it's not just an overtime officer who has to struggle to get their time in to do a sting operation, for example. This would allow time to then do follow-up with those businesses who were cited, talk about education, changes in law that they should be aware of. So I think we thought of it as more of a deeper dive into some of that enforcement beyond just the overtime salaries that are often paid, as well as looking at some of those triggering factors that can contribute to youth tobacco use.
When is that awarded?
We'll be looking at fall. We were just due on Friday at 5. So. The U.S. Department of Justice, we applied for this program back in June. This was a good partnership with the school
Same year,
district.
Richard?
I'm sorry.
2019? Awarded this fall?
Yes, this fall, I'm sorry. They're pretty quick at the Attorney General's office. Those attorneys like to move through stuff pretty quick. U.S. Department of Justice School Violence Prevention Program. This was when we partnered with the school district to look at technological needs such as video surveillance at schools, electronic gates, as well as training activities for like active shooter trainings. The only downside of this program is from DOJ, roughly 1 to 2 awards per state. So it was 1, and then just before they closed the solicitation, they announced they'd be trying to do almost twice as many, so it could be 2 awards per state. But regardless, I think it was a good effort. It was, we haven't been unsuccessful yet. I'm just saying it was a good effort with the school district. You have a great superintendent here, great with information. It's something we could apply if there is something at the state level that would apply for something like this. It's something we can translate into a state application. And then, of course, with FEMA, and the chief and I spoke about this last week, but FEMA is still not announced grant awards yet. And they're actually at a point now where they've delayed the next solicitation. They're just backlogged back in DC. Kind of like US DOJ with their COPS program is also delayed in terms of their next solicitation because of lawsuits around sanctuary cities, having to ask agencies to certify they're not a sanctuary city. So we're waiting with bated breath on that. And then still, you'll also find in your folders, on the left-hand side, there's a monthly report, but also an updated memo on some of the housing funding, homelessness funding that has come out. The update is basically from the budget this year. So SB 2 is still out there. I know we're working to see if we can get enough progress done on our housing element work to make sure we're eligible for this. This will be rolling funding that's available through November, so I think we're optimistic we'll get there and can apply. And then the state budget just included some chunks of funding for additional housing planning activities as well as homelessness activities. And there's, again, a memo in there that you can read at your leisure. I think that's all I had in the presentation.
Do you have a spreadsheet with the names of these and like the due date that you could send us?
On the left-hand side in the monthly report, there is I keep a little matrix.
It's just easier visually.
Totally.
And then going through the pages.
That's why, yeah, I have it in there. From now on, maybe I'll try to include it here if it doesn't get too small.
Perfect, thank you. I know you've got so many going.
Yeah.
It's hard to get them on, but thank you. That would help me be able to see it all.
You have a great staff that is active.
Okay. Did you have a comment, Councilman?
Richard,
Yes,
I
sir.
see Townsend right here is established 1998. So basically, how long has your organization been around?
It'll be 21st year this year.
25th,
21st.
21st. And I know before I was on council in 2015, Townsend worked with the city doing grant writing and lobbying, correct?
No, we worked, it may have been
I wasn't on. It was like 14, 15.
it was about 16. And we were on board to do a couple state Safe Routes to School ATP applications. We were doing a per grant, and we had authority to do 2 or 3 grants.
Okay. I know it's
And that was the extent.
prior to being me on council, and then back in March, Townsend was recontracted to do grant writing, which is the current contract, right?
That's right. We had the short contract just for a couple per grants, and then that went away. And then it was a couple years, and then last March, yes, came back on.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Does Townsend know the difference between an appropriation and a grant?
Yes.
What's the difference?
Well, an appropriation usually comes from the legislature or Congress, and it's appropriation by that body of funding for a specific project.
Okay. And you're currently contracted with the city to do grant writing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my question to you is, how did Townsend put an appropriation request of $8 million to the state of California on the city's behalf without the city or the city manager know anything about it?
And I would say we did not put an appropriation request in for any funding. If you recall back in December when I made, and I have a point to make too with the document. So back in December, I think as part of my next steps slide at the end of my presentation, there was a couple things. One of them was meeting with council members in Sacramento during the league stuff, which we did with the city manager. And the second one we put on there was just briefing, particularly our new senator, just on the projects we were working on for the city, so that when we came for letters of support, we would be, not working from a blank slate with them.
Right.
So that was one of the next steps. That is the next step that happened in January, February. Our president actually did the meeting on behalf of all of our clients within the senator's district. And I provided information on all the projects, the grant projects we were working on for him to present. And I had labeled mine priority projects. And when the city manager approached me last month, and I didn't see the final document, it said requests. So it's unfortunate it was named that, but it was extremely clear. These are requests for funding that we're making for grant programs, wherever we can solicit. A budget request or an appropriations request is completely different. We did with the senator's district, some budget requests for other cities, and they require resolutions, they require council member meetings with budget staff in Sacramento, with leadership staff in Sacramento, a real hand-holding all through the spring. So,
Which city staff did do with all the requests that your organization inadvertently put in?
and here's, this is where I would disagree. We were showing her the projects we were working on. I think all of those would be grant projects we were working on and we needed some support as we applied for those funds. We did include the police station because we didn't want to say we have no knowledge of this, but we said this is a project being handled by another firm. But those were not submitted to the senator as requests for budget requests.
So the email that I got from the senator's chief of staff saying that Townsend Associated submitted a request in January prior to both the mayor and I and the city manager and our other firm going and making a request, he's mistaken, the senator's chief of staff.
I would say he's mistaken in what the request was.
So if I talk to, pardon me, Mayor Pro Tem, if I talk to Senator Hurtado about that, and she just called me on Friday to update me on the AB 101 housing trailer bill, she would back you up. That's what you're saying, that you had made no request for an $8 million appropriation.
From the
With
budget,
the
no.
import being that you were moving across your lines
Right.
as a grant writer to the
So-
city's current lobbyist.
Okay, back to my question. So
So you deny
when
it.
the city manager in December told you not to do anything in regards to the police station, why was that even on your list of your projects?
I don't recall that conversation.
You,
So,
I-
clearly, the role of Townsend is the grant writing and anything in regard to grant writing, so.
so you told him, do not do anything with the police station, have nothing to do, cease and desist. Is that what you told him?
I did not what I'm saying is that it was very clear that
I
Chris.
didn't hear you ever said
but-
that.
So it was very clear that Chris Com was handling the police station. I think that we're both very clear on that.
Yes. In fact, and I apologize, I wasn't in the meeting with the senator. It was our president on behalf of a number of different cities and school districts. So I wasn't there, so that's part of some of the confusion. But that was clear. It was, this likely will be a budget request handled by Chriscom for the city. That was the one thing absolutely clear. The rest were clear that they were projects we were working on for grants. So, I do disagree with how the chief of staff characterized it.
That disagreement carries X amount of $1 million for our community. At that date that we voted as a majority. Not as the mayor, as a majority. He contested it, the mayor contested it. and
What are we
si-
talking about?
Yeah,
What are you
we're
talking about?
We're talking about the proving of the police department and proving,
Aren't we talking about
Uh,
grants and? I
No,
mean,
no, we're not talking about grants. We're talking about appropriations that a grant writer did. And for a company that's been in business for 25 years, with the
One.
reputation and professionality that Townsend has, it seems kind of a too simple a mistake for you to have done carelessly, to be honest.
No, yeah, and I would disagree. It wasn't a budget request for everything on it. We had, we went in with other cities that had similar lists, and the ones that had budget requests, it was clear, and here's a letter from the city with a budget request. These were projects that we had worked on for grants on a list, and I apologize for the naming of it. I wasn't part of that, and that did confuse it.
Well, geez, if you just let me, I remember we went with the Mayor Pro Tem and I, and the city manager went to meet with State Senator Hurtado and the chief of staff in March, right?
No, February.
February, and you're saying that he
Pri-
applied for that in
prior to our
January.
meeting.
Why wouldn't they have brought that up when we talked about the police station? We talked about grant for mostly the police station,
Yeah,
right?
but
For the
that was
$3
our
million.
only objective this
So if
year.
that would have happened, pardon me if I could just finish my sentence, part of that meeting, wouldn't they have brought that up then and said, hey, you're a little late. Townsend already applied for that. We were there with a gentleman from Chriscom, and I didn't get the sense or the impression that they had already had an application for that same funding. I got a sense that we were there first on that.
Yeah, well,
with-
the
with
chief
the
of
gentleman
staff,
from
the
Criscom.
chief of staff, when both, the chief of staff, Senator Hurtado's chief of staff, both Councilman Trujillo and I went advocating for the grant request. And I asked them, how did Selma get $8 million? Who asked for it? Nobody knows how somebody asked for $8 million for Selma. I mean, I don't know, call me silly. Shouldn't our city manager and council know who's asking for millions and millions of dollars for us, right? Because our lobbyist didn't know, and he said, I'll research it. And the research came back, quite frankly, and says it was requested by another firm that we contracted, Townsend Associates.
Well, I would
Point,
think
that's
they would
it.
have let us know. I would think
I would
Senator
thought so
Hurtado
too,
herself
but they
would have let
didn't.
us know. And I'd rather hear it straight from
And-
Senator Hurtado, and I intend on calling her and asking her directly to get to
'Cause
the
I know
truth of
she-
this
she
matter. 'Cause
does-
this gentleman is denying that that ever happened. He's saying that they didn't make the $8 million appropriation. And I think for this firm that has brought, how much money you brought to the city in the last 12 months? How much have you,
And about
how much we got in
four-
grants?
About 480,000, I think.
Almost $500,000. How much How much has Criscom brought in to the
Over
city in
$4
the
million.
last 12 months? In the last 12 months?
Oh,
They
oh,
brought
I'm
in
sorry.
zero.
Actually, they brought in $1.5 million because, but one of the requests that we didn't ask for was actually lobbied by Criscom and awarded. They actually lobbied for it because they did their due diligence. But quite frankly, we're not talking about Criscom. We're talking about you and your organization's actions. Not you, your organization's actions. So it has zero to do with Criscom. Okay? Once again, we turn our heads. I can't believe the fact that we have a contractor, regardless of reason, undermine the authority of this city, and yet we sit here and we actually are considering renewing their contract is just beyond me. I don't know if we didn't lose, you weren't here, Teresa. I don't know if we didn't learn our lesson when we did the Dave Elias thing, but this just raises too many red flags. That's all I'm just saying.
I remember when you made personnel comments to the ABC 30 on Mr. Elias, and tonight
Yeah.
you're making attacks on this gentleman here.
Yes, I am. I'm
which
making
he
attacks
is-
on his
which he is-
organization.
Which he's denying.
Okay.
So I'm saying we should get to the bottom of this before we all jump
Let
on the
me- let me-
bandwagon
let
here,
me-
because
Let me hear.
his firm has brought in nearly $500,000. He continues to do a professional job. I haven't seen Criscom. I haven't seen them do a presentation. I can't remember the last time they've done it. It's nothing against Criscom, but this gentleman comes every quarter and makes a presentation, does a professional job. You can try to bring up all these different side topics,
What side
as you
topic?
two do.
What's the side topic
the
that I
police
brought up?
station?
He brought up, I didn't bring up police station.
Richard,
Okay.
I would
didn't bring
like
up-
to
Let's-
personally, I mean, this is just uncalled for. You're a professional. He's behaving unprofessional, and I'm sorry for this behavior. Let's move on, because we don't need this behavior. We don't act like this, and I want to apologize for his
Richard,
behavior.
What is unprofessional about my behavior? Would you question this if you were in my position? Or would you just say, oh, you know what? No big deal. It was an accident. Oops.
No.
Well, I
Would
know
you
they haven't brought it to my attention. Senator Hurtado and I just talked to her Friday about the trailer bill, and I would think if it was an $8 million infraction and
yeah.
mistake like Councilman Trujillo is asserting, I would have heard about it, and the other council members would have heard about it, and I think the city manager would have heard about it. So
Will you
we're
give me
not,
time to speak?
I always do. We're not getting that. What we're getting is a sideshow.
What's
diverting
the sideshow? What's the sideshow?
We're here to discuss their contract renewal.
Okay, let's discuss contract renewal.
So that's what we're here to do. That's the agenda item. And this firm, from what I've seen, has brought in $500,000 in less than 12 months. They come here with quarterly reports. They met with you when you were in Sacramento, the two
Can I-
new council
can I s-
members and
can
the
I-
city manager, and
can I
they've done a
speak?
professional job. And the last time we voted to extend the just to set the table for the public so they know, the last time I was on the phone, away from the meeting, phoning in for the meeting, we voted on this. He had just brought in the $270,000 TOD funding award, and it was already funded. His contract was already funded for the remainder of the contract period till the budget. till 7-1. And you two still voted against it. So there is something underlying there that's going on. And I don't know why you're so anti-Townsend, but it's not based on the work that he's done. It's not based on his track record. So
Will I have the
you know,
opportunity to
that's-
respond to both of
That's
your?
what I don't get.
Well, can I respond?
Please.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Please do.
respond?
It's America. Speech.
No one's
Go ahead.
stopping you.
Speak.
Okay, so I did participate. I did speak with you. I did meet you when I just became elected. And you quite frankly sat with us and you told us, hey, I appreciate giving you the time to sit and talk to us. You also told me that you wish that we could all work together, and that's fine. Not once did we talk about the police department. Not once did we talk about anything. We were welcomed by you. And I appreciate that. Today, this is the email I received from the chief of staff. So today, I should not accept this email. I should accept this as a lie from the chief of staff. The individual that has almost 40 years, one of the highest recommended, Mr. Bustamante's chief of staff, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's what I'm supposed to do. This is his email.
I know Mr. Waldy well. I'm not calling him a liar. He was not in the meeting
You
with our
did.
president and the senator when they met in the beginning of the year. It was the chief of staff who's on leave currently, Aaron Skaggs. So he was not in that meeting. So I don't say liar, I just say, it was kind of like me, I wasn't there, so I have a hard time saying exactly what words were said.
Today, right now, because the mayor said that I'm innuendo personally attacking you or have some strategic plan, I want to keep with the issue right now. You stated to me and you stated to the council that this email, after we went for 3 days to lobby on our good faith, on my own money, took 3 days of work off, paid my own hotel, because I felt the need of me going out there and trying to lobby as a legislator, as an elected legislator for the city of Selma. I went there. I met with a lot of chief of staffs, and I thank them. I'm not here to crucify you. I'm not here to attack the mayor. I'm here to get an understanding. And quite frankly, I'm not here to come and talk to you or the mayor. My biggest concern is that I have a city manager saying that she wants to approve your contract, and I question not you, your company's integrity. But you're telling me that I should not. I should take this email as a lie.
I think we should have, I feel bad, Senator Hurtado nor her staff are here. There have been multiple
Exactly.
folks in her office who've been involved in this whole effort, in her grant and everything else. I would appreciate the conversation happening with them in the room, so it's not, I'm calling someone a liar.
Well, you did.
No, I didn't.
No, he didn't.
I said I disagree with it, but I did not. I have the utmost respect for Mr. Waldy, worked with him a long time. So
So I don't want to get in here and there. I do have, and I want to make sure that the public knows that when this went down, I was there. So I heard that, I was a little confused, and I feel that we do need more dialogue. I feel that we need to resolve this, because you are in somewhat of fashion, you are an asset to our city. But we need to have dialogue in regards to what went on, and we need to have closure, okay? Respectful dialogue, respectful closure. But you can't go away and say to me that I can't speak when I went there for 3 days and it was actually the days that they were actually lobbying. It was the good days where they were going for the actual conviction of what every city wants. There was thousands of people there. So I don't want anybody to just think that we're just here, you know, as the mayor stated, we got a personal agenda. No, we invested our own personal time, our own personal money for the betterment of this community. So when we went out there, we decided that we were gonna go and try to lobby as legislators and get some money. And we were giving information, and my biggest concern is not with you, has nothing to do with you. The mayor has his own agenda, I have my own agenda as to what we need to do to better this community.
My agenda is the city's agenda. I don't have an agenda.
My agenda is for the city of Selma's betterment, and I have to question that. So aside of that, I apologize if I have you,
Wow.
if I offended you in any way, but I really want some dialogue, I want some honesty, and I want some closure.
Thank you.
That's what I want.
I feel that
Thank you.
we've gotten that from tonight
hang
from
on. Scott.
someone here.
Hang on, Teresa,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Did you want to go first, Councilmember?
Did you
or-
want to make a
Want
comment,
me-
Councilman Avalos? You've been
I-
waiting
I would be-
all night
I'm-
patiently.
go ahead, ladies
Thank
first, I'm
you.
a gentleman today.
Thank you,
Ladies first,
Mr.
go.
Mayor, council members. I just wanted to address your comments, Councilmember Trujillo, and to the whole council, that I did have a very candid conversation with Mr. Harmon about these items that are a concern to you, and it is understandably something that we need to watch for and make sure that we are coordinated in our efforts. I believe that we have addressed it in a very candid manner, that we can move forward, and that this will not be something that this lack of coordination would not be something that we would see again. And we made such amendments into the agreement in order to ensure that, and that because we also have some pending items that are in progress that are important for the city. We have a very large grant that is due in 2 weeks, that I think that it would behoove the city to get that application in, and a lot of work has gone in to this grant process. For those reasons, I think that it is in the best interest of the city to move forward. If there is any breach of the contract moving forward, I would be here with a very different recommendation. So I would like that opportunity, and as I mentioned before, there is an opportunity for us also to go out for proposals in the year ahead, because we do have 2 firms doing the work that is not the same, but it sometimes can be effective if it is within the same company, and certainly cost effective. So that is something as a city that we should look at organizationally.
So you're saying we could, next year, we could go out to bid and bundle the services? We could have one company that would bid, or several companies that would bid for both the grant writing and the lobbying services? Is that what you're saying?
That is a possibility, and we may want to do it in such a way that we have options as to whether do we need both services, and if so, could we bundle them more efficiently and at a better price?
Councilman Avalos?
Okay, finally my turn.
Finally.
That was the first one. It's okay. No, Teresa, I want to ask you a question here, and this is a very sensitive item here. How many grants, or actually I should ask you, how many grants we have right now that are pending on the table at a state level
We have the
that are
tobacco
very
one.
crucial right now?
Sure, we have the FEMA one we
FEMA?
mentioned.
Okay.
We have the tobacco one submitted on
Okay, tobacco.
Friday. And I'm trying to think if there was one more that was still pending without referring to my notes.
The statewide park program.
Statewide, right? State.
That one is going in. That one's going in here in a couple weeks. But I think that was it. Still pending.
Okay, those sensitive items there.
And then we do have, there's several in the fall that we've been looking at.
Got the Prop 1 grant that would be due in the fall, you just said. That's for the water conveyors, to get the water from the storm drains to the recharge basin.
And there
behind,
was USDA, and
Salazar
then
Center.
to the extent transportation, we haven't, to this point, had significant transportation projects other than like the TOD, but there is some transportation funding that will be coming out later this fall.
So is it your opinion, city manager, that if the city combined the contract, if the city awarded a contract for a bundled arrangement, bundled services with one firm providing grant writing and lobbying, that it could lead to not having misunderstandings like this in the future?
Well, I think first and foremost, I was thinking it would also help, might be more cost effective, but it does increase in efficiency. However, I do think we can address having the 2 firms right now, as long as we're communicating well and we have very clear understandings. So,
And is Townsend amenable to that arrangement?
Oh,
And have
of-
you always
of-
been amenable to working with?
Of course,
Other firms.
and literally to the point about the meeting we had about, it was about grants that we have been working on, and that's why I'd like to have it would be great to have a meeting with the senator's office, to have everyone who was present there, because it was about the grants. We requested for no city in the Central Valley, $8 million of an earmark for anyone. We were very specific.
I'll be asking.
And
I'll definitely be
we-
asking.
we would, yeah, appreciate
Senator
the meeting.
herself.
And I had offered to the city manager when we discussed this, I said, happy to have a bright line to where even if it's a letter of support that we needed for a grant application, even if if CRISCOM would solicit that from the legislators, that was fine with us, whatever gets the job done. So,
Any more to add?
I guess what I'm trying to get at basically is the communication. Communication was apparently the factor. I'm not, I'm gonna cut to the chase. And unfortunately, you weren't in that room. You should have been in that room.
if I could do one thing over again right
I-
now.
I'm just,
I would be
I'm
back
not
in
pointing
that room.
fingers, but I'm just telling you,
I know.
I'm cutting to the chase, okay?
Mhm.
But I know you have to do it all over again, you'd be in that room. I totally understand that. Unfortunately, you weren't, and things happen, I get it. But also, I also understand that we have things on the table here that are important right now for the city of Selma. I understand that as well. And there's an old saying in life, you can forgive first round, second round ain't happening, okay? But I totally, but I understand.
Well, you know what I can't forgive is lack of performance. And,
Well,
I
no,
see
it's
that
not
check
that-
going out every
Well,
$4,500
it's not
bucks
that
to
you-
CRISCOM
yeah.
every month and last 12
Mr.
months.
Mayor, CRISCOM's
got
not at the issue.
zero-
CRISCOM's not on the agenda.
Well, but,
And
you're
quite
talking
frankly,
about
CRISCOM
the
just lobbied for
lobbying.
$1.5 million that was signed by the governor's office just a few weeks ago.
They went for a police station funding, and
The-
they didn't get any dollars on that. That is
So-
specifically what they stated.
You know,
They were gonna go after, and I'm not casting aspersions. No
yes,
one
you are.
got,
That's exactly what
no
you're
one
doing.
got the
You're
the
casting
money on it.
aspersion.
You're the one blaming this person
Damn
for
right I
trying to
am,
submarine
because
the
it was
city
his organization that put in
for
request
$8 million
based on the
costing the
senators.
city $8 million. I see them as bringing the city
Councilman
Mr. Mayor, are you gonna
$480,000.
let people talk, or are you gonna talk over them?
Okay. Scott,
I was making a
Scott,
point,
Scott,
and you're the
Scott.
one that interrupted me.
Okay.
You know-
Mr. Pro Tem.
Scott, both you guys, hold it.
No, hold on, let me finish my statement.
No,
Okay.
we're all gonna talk in an
We're all
orderly
gonna
way.
talk. As far
Go
as
ahead.
those
Go ahead,
deadlines,
Pro Tem, talk.
there's a 30-day exit clause that will clear the crucial filing of those things. Listen, Grant Wright, the only reason that you were hired is because City Manager Perea said that our staff wasn't capable of doing the basic grants. That's the only reason.
That's true.
The real issue is not that we have a grant writer, is when are we gonna staff up or train our staff to do these? Because a lot of these grants, what they call low-hanging fruit, that we can get and another city gets.
Don't denigrate what they did. They didn't do anything. That,
I'm not
you know,
denigrating.
that's what you're saying. You're like, oh, they did something anybody
Okay.
could get.
Right.
477,000. The people you advocate, zero.
Okay,
So
Scott,
no,
Scott.
nothing.
One
Let's move
point,
forward.
hold on.
Let's.
Let's move
Did we,
forward.
we're
Senator,
gonna-
City Manager,
We're not getting anywhere.
did the
just doing
city of
this.
Selma receive $1.5 million from the state?
We did receive an appropriation of $1.5
And
million
Senator
from the
Hurtado called
state.
me, and she is big on water issues, and she was the one that got that for the city. That was not a result of anyone but Senator Hurtado going and getting that. And I was in the same meeting with you when we talked about the police station funding. That was front and center for this year, and there was zero that came from CRISCOM. And what I'm saying is it's not to cast aspersions on CRISCOM, but it
That's
is to
exactly
say
what you're
that
doing.
Townsend is bringing money into the city. You
Mayor,
cannot
Mayor
deny
Pro
that.
Tem, if
You
I
know,
might.
this respect law, we're talking about the ethics and the integrity of
Yeah,
our
we are.
city and how we do business. The fact that you will let somebody come undermine our staff and do something without letting them know and then deny it, right? And long as the money gets here, that's all you care. You don't care how it
What's
does it.
unethical
Integrity
is
matters,
accusing
and it
somebody of
matters all the
wrongdoing
time.
that they didn't commit
Mr. Mayor,
before
Mayor
they
Pro
can,
Tem.
before that can be confirmed.
Okay, you
That's
know what, we're
un-
getting off
Councilmember-
topic.
Let's
Guys,
get
we're
back-
getting off
let's
topic.
Let's get back on track.
Let's-
Exactly.
I believe
back on track.
Councilmember Avalos wanted to finish. Did you want to finish your comments,
Yeah,
Councilmember?
let me finish, guys. Yeah, since we have these sensitive items, can we delay this for the next council meeting on this, or is it very time sensitive? Let me ask you that question. Is there, can we
Why-
delay it for next council meeting?
For what?
That way we'll have.
For
that-
what?
Why?
For what?
That way
I'm
we
not
have-
changing my mind. Integrity,
would-
Well, that
why
way
would
you have all-
we-
that way-
I'm not
that way-
budging on.
Franco, that
You
way
know,
you
Why
have
would
all
we
the
delay
answers.
this
I do
when
have
they've
the
done a
answers.
perfectly good job? I mean, to vote again, to get
Well,
rid of
you
Townsend
know what, I didn't want to
shows
say this
no
last time.
business sense.
Okay, let me clarify this because you keep on bringing it up. I actually made one of the motions to bring you on in March in 2015. And then I made the motion, I voted against to renew you. And the fact of the matter is, the reason I voted, and I wanted to be polite and say it was, that I was talking with a council member from Sanger, and they said, with the same thing that City of Mendota said, what they said, the same thing that when we first got rid of your services in 2010, you bring in the stuff we could get on our own. That's what they said. Be honest, you want the answer? That's the answer. I was trying to be polite, but the
And
mayor
have
would
they?
not drop the issue. Sorry, but that's the reason.
So that says it all. That comment just says it all about Mayor Pro Tem Franco
Yes,
and
it
his
does.
profession, and his lack of professionalism.
Lack.
So let's move on to the vote.
Okay.
Is there,
Teresa,
hold on, excuse me.
all right.
Can I speak?
Go ahead, Scott.
Can we let the public weigh in on this? Because they have an interest in this as well. Would anybody like to step forward and weigh in on this topic? We've talked quite a lot about this.
1057 Mill Street, Rose Robertson. It's very interesting that this is happening when Selma's in a lot of need of grant money, and what Selma needs badly. But I'm just beside myself listening to Councilmember Franco stating that, do you know asking Townsend if he knows the difference between a grant writing and appropriation, when he stood here on record and stated when he was running for Measure P that if we didn't match that appropriation with the measure for the $4 million, that it would go back. Because you didn't know the difference between an appropriation and a grant at the time. So really, you have a lot of nerve asking Townsend, the grant writer, when you stated that on record. You stated that on record, here, right here where I'm standing. So I just wanted to put that on record.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Frank Hernandez, 14871 South Highland. I'm just a dumb tow truck driver, you know. Excuse me, but I'm sitting here and I'm watching the three gentlemen on the left and the other two councilmen on the right. And I haven't seen so much fire from you three on any other topic except this one. And is there a way that the citizens can find out what was the catalyst, what ignited that? What has brought so much fire from you three? You know, and all we heard was police station. What happened? What? Because Mr. Franco said a minute ago that this gentleman, we don't need him because your team can do what he does. With that same clarity, when we were up here arguing about having, help me with the word, sir, the construction manager and a construction manager overseer, where was the common clarity on those topics? You know, the citizens would just like to know.
Where was the
Frank,
outrage
Frank,
there?
you misheard me. What I said was, the only reason that we hired him was our staff didn't have the skills to write the common grant.
I understand
Okay,
that.
so that's what
I
that's what I
didn't-
said. I didn't say that we didn't need him because we didn't. I'm not saying we don't need a grant writer at this time. What I'm saying is we don't need a grant writer that's going to undermine the authority of the city manager. Pure and simple. Pure and simple. That's it. That's my reasoning. That's my motivation.
I
don't have one.
agree wholeheartedly.
Okay.
But what I would like to know, just as, you know, a citizen of Selma, is what was the nucleus that fired you three up? Because you three have been sitting back and just streamlining this $11 million adventure that we're in. Is it hindering? Is it helping? Whatever happened with
This
this email?
really has nothing to do with $11 million, is my concern. What it has fired me up is the reputation and integrity of this city.
Reputation and integrity.
Yes, the integrity of this city.
Reputation and integrity. I mean, we were up here listening to people call all the people from Selma, the council members, local law enforcement, a bunch of buffoons because of what's going on. You know, the mayor said earlier that there's an underlining issue with whatever's going on. And if there is a way that Joe Citizen or I can find out what ignited this, what's the problem, what's going on? You know, are they dropping the ball? Is he not doing his job? Is it something that you guys all agreed on in the past and it's coming back to haunt you with whatever decisions were made? I mean, we're just up here watching what's unfolding. And I'd like to know why? You know?
It was stated during our discussion.
Okay, thanks for the question.
It was stated.
Didn't get a response.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Next.
That Teresa's gonna say something.
Okay.
Teresa Salas, 3221 Lee Street. I'm listening to all this. Aside from the name calling on everybody's part, that shouldn't have happened at all. But the question I have is, why did Councilman Trujillo and Mayor Pro Tem Franco receive an email from the secretary, staff person from Hurtado's office saying what? What was said in that email, and why did you two receive it? Did the other three councilmen receive
No,
it?
Nothing,
No.
nothing.
I received it because I went and I asked myself, and then I forwarded that information to the city manager. What she did with that afterwards,
What were you asking? What were you looking
I-
for?
I s- we
What
went
brought this
lobbying-
on?
Okay, well, let me tell you the story.
Okay.
We were back in May, me, Councilman Trujillo, on our own expense, said we're gonna go and lobby for the request of the $1 million request, because it was 1 million, for the police station. And when we were going, visiting all the list of senators, Hurtados, Arambla, we had committee members just dropping by, talking to their staff, you know. So council, the chief of staff of Senator Hurtado, we thanked her for the request of the $7 million and stuff like that. And I said, but I spoke with the city manager, and we don't know, and our lobbyists didn't know who requested $8 million on our behalf, and I just find it as a person who represents the community. How can nobody not know who asked $8 million for a community?
So
And
you
so I
went
asked them-
investigating that.
No, I went handing pamphlets to each one to promote that. I asked him that because it was his office that put in the $7 million, $8 million appropriation grants. And he says, I don't know, let me look in back to you, let me look in and I'll get back to you. And then he sent me the email that said, when you spoke in February, when you and the mayor, our other lobbyist firm and the city manager spoke in February with the city, with the Hurtado's office, early in January, Townsend has put in a formal request, and we always honor the first request. That's why.
City Manager Gallivan, were you aware of all this stuff that was going on?
Go ahead, answer.
Mr. Mayor, do you?
Go ahead.
So this has come to my attention recently, and in summary, you know, in an attempt to assist the city in securing funds, Townsend engaged in efforts beyond the scope of their agreement, but they're in the interest.
So they did do what is alleged.
Yes, they
They-
did, in an attempt to secure funding for the city, they submitted information to the senator's office, including the police station.
That was not requested by the city.
Correct. And we have discussed this, and I believe that we have made some very clear parameters on the type of interaction moving forward, and I'm addressing the council, that we will have and that our consultants will have in this regard, so that there isn't this overlap of work product. The fortunate news is we received the 1.5 million in appropriation funding. But moving forward, we want to make sure that we're clear, and Townsend Public Affairs would come to the city manager before doing any legislative outreach in the future, so that we are aware of what is being asked for and that it's coordinated between our two consultants. So I'm aware of the situation, we've addressed the situation, and believe that we can move forward working with both organizations until we go out and do a request for proposals in the
So if you felt
future.
any breach had happened, you would say, if you felt that
But the
Townsend
bottom
did that
line-
to Submarine,
Should we end
to Submarine,
public
the other
comment?
firm,
The bottom line is that they did do what Mayor Pro Tem Franco and Councilman Trujillo have accused them of doing. They did overstep their
I haven't
bounds
heard that
because
from
that's what
Senator
the city
Hurtado.
manager just said that they did.
So I haven't heard it from Senator Hurtado, and she called me as late as Friday.
Your city manager just told you they did.
Mr. Mayor.
You know,
Your city manager just told,
So-
she said that there's a resolution to it, that they've talked about it and they're not gonna do it again, but that they did do it.
So
So I'm just saying that all
The
the,
noise
all
aside.
the argument, the bottom line is that Townsend did do what they're accused of doing. Your city manager just said that they did that. Okay, whatever the resolution is, if you 5 councilmen agree to this resolution, that they made a mistake, they're never gonna do it again, stop it, don't do it anymore, and you want to continue their contract, that's what you're voting on now.
Yes.
So,
That's correct.
so there's no need to table it for another 2 weeks because we have the outcome now. We know what happened, we know what was done, we know what the city
that's not
manager
how she
told
said
them,
it.
and now it's
not
a
how
matter of voting on whether you want to extend their
It's just a
contract or
question
not.
on-
So, Mr. Mayor, just,
Is that correct?
hold on, are you done with your comments?
I
'Cause we're not
believe I
gonna go
am.
Back and forth. Do you have any more questions for the
Well,
council?
that was the question that I wanted to find out.
Okay, thank you.
Who knew?
Did you want to
Yes,
address the
Thank
speaker, or
you.
do you want to address the
no,
council?
no, the speaker, Mike, I wanna, cause he's asking to address how we occurred and what, to answer his question. I wanna make sure that somebody understands how I came through and understand how I ended up in Sacramento. Just so everybody understands. In May 20th, we were to go to Las Vegas for a convention of bringing in businesses to this community. Prior to that meeting, the mayor's wife came to the podium and said to me, get informed of what's going on with the actual police department. Because there was a lot of anti-police department building and about us funding the police department, if we all remember that. I called the mayor pro tem and I said, Mr. Mayor pro tem,
Why
I
would you
don't
bring
think
her
it's
up?
feasible,
Yeah.
and this
Why would
makes,
you bring her up?
because
What a
because I called and
Tangent.
said,
She wasn't saying that to you.
I said, this is not feasible for us to go to the Las Vegas show. I would rather go to Sacramento and lobby
Yeah.
to get
Irrelevant.
money for the police department. And we went to Sacramento, we met with the chief of staffs. That's how we got the email. That's how we found out what occurred. Now, you guys can attack us for what we're bringing up, but in reality, things did occur. Things don't look right. We are upset. We want answers. That's what we got elected for. It may upset some people of what occurred. The mayor can say whatever he wants, but I have the right to ask also because we're dealing with public funds. And if we lose money,
I
public funds-
appreciate your
public funds-
concern, Councilman Trujillo, but maybe you could have showed the same concern when you voted to put our police station 40% over budget. So forgive me
I'm
if
the
I'm
same-
seeing a little
I'm the same
disconnect
person.
between
I'm
your
the-
sudden business sense now
I
and your
wanna-
complete lack of it several months ago
So
when you
I'm the
voted to
same-
put the
I'm
police
the
station.
same person that questioned the Ken Gray contract where you spent $280,000. I'm the same person that questioned you going and having a meeting with the city manager from Fowler after he got arrested here and you spent the money. I'm the same person that questions the fact that you spent $28,000 to go do a national research to find a city manager, and after you closed that hearing, you went to Fowler and you got him, you hired him. I'm the same person that questioned you
Okay.
for getting the
Enough
PLA.
of this. We're getting
Okay.
way,
We're
way.
We're
You're
all
off
off topic,
subject.
and we're
Yes,
all
I gotta bring
emotional.
it to you.
Can
But
we
you
just
know,
move over
I
with our
appreciate your
agenda?
financial sense, but let's not listen to a
It's big
person
financial
financial
sense.
sense who declares bankruptcy as in the past,
hello.
and then puts pictures of having a lavish holiday with his employees on social media. You want to attack me? You said you questioned my bona fides as mayor. You questioned my
Mr. Mayor,
mayorship.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm
let's
questioning
remember
your
the rules
financial
of
judgment.
decorum
I'm
as we move
I'm
forward with.
questioning your
You're saying I
financial-
filed bankruptcy?
I'm questioning your financial judgment. That's what I'm questioning.
Mr. Mayor, members of
We gotta-
council, if
So
we
you're saying
could
you have this
return
great
it to the
business sense.
agenda
So
item.
let's
Okay,
move
we're
on, and let's not bring up the past. Let's have the topic at hand, which is whether or not to approve this contract right here.
We should have said.
Can we,
So are there any more questions for Richard Harmon tonight? Does council have any more discussion
yeah, there's one more
that we
discussion.
would like to
Teresa,
engage in?
we have all this stuff on the plate here. And if we shoot it down, it goes away. Am I correct?
Actually, don't we get a 30-day exit clause, so we still have their services for 30 days? Which will
No.
pass the critical deadline?
We're actually, right now,
passed the
proposing that
deadline.
this contract, it be, July 1st starting. So we
So the
are,
contract
right now, they
renewal
have
is
been
7/1.
working and assisting
So we're
us
past
based
that.
on that.
So,
One month.
okay, so is there a motion
We'll make it a motion to approve it.
to approve continuing the contract for
Continue
Townsend?
the crop-
Is there,
yeah, we'll continue.
is there a sec, so is that a motion
A motion to, 30,
to
yeah,
approve
yeah, we'll approve the contract.
extending the contract?
Okay,
for
Okay,
a
and I'll
year?
so we
second
can-
it.
we
And then
can
next year,
we
we will
can-
go out
we
and
can
bundle
actually-
the contract.
We can make the amendments on these
go.
contracts, am I correct?
Okay, is there a
Well-
second?
I second it.
Call the roll, please.
Wait.
Council-
No, she's not done
Mr.
yet.
Mayor, if I can answer, if I
Okay,
can
there could be
answer,
No,
discussion.
Sheila, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just answer Councilmember Avalos' question, just so that I'm clear, you're asking if we can amend the contract?
Yes,
Yes, Councilmember, at any time we can amend the contract. The contract currently does have a 30-day termination period, so if we wanted
Okay.
to terminate, we would have to
so we
give
can have
30
a
days
30 day,
notice.
okay. So we can actually amend the contract within, okay,
There's a
So we
30-day
can approve
termination
it-
on all these
we can approve
professional
it.
agreements.
okay, that's fine, all right.
So there's a motion to
a motion.
approve the contract for a year. There's a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Avalos,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco,
No.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes.
There you go.
That it passes for another year. Thank you. Thanks for coming out, Richard. And I will be talking to Senator Hurtado directly to get the real story. Thank you. Item number 4, consideration of a
Oh,
resolution of the City
jeez.
Council of the City of Selma, California, declaring its intent to transition from at-large to by-district council member elections pursuant to Elections Code Sections 10010. Report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. At the last council meeting,
Business man.
council directed that staff bring forward this resolution to start the process of going to at-district elections. The recommendation is to approve the resolution. It's not based on any admission or concession that the city would ultimately be found to have violated the CVRA, the California Voting Right Act. Rather, the public interest may be ultimately better served by voluntarily transitioning to district-based elections due to the uncertainty of litigation to defend against a CVRA lawsuit and the potentially extraordinary cost of such a lawsuit, even if the city were to prevail. The proposed resolution outlines the city's intention to transition from an at-large to a district-based elections and specific steps it will undertake to facilitate this transition and an estimated time frame for doing so. And we have an updated Exhibit A to the resolution that we're going to pass out for you. As we clarified some of the timelines, we also do need to run this timeline by our
Yes.
consultant.
Update this one.
Correct. So
It's the
there's a
same
new
thing.
one to please
Yeah.
replace
Oh, it's a new one?
the one in your packet.
That one's a little confusing.
And we will be running this by our consultant. If we need to make any adjustments to the resolution, we do have the authority to do so, but this, it will give you an idea of the process. The tentative timeline is to solicit public input and testimony on proposed district-based electoral maps before adopting any such map. The timeline includes the dates to have the 5 required public hearings. It's a very tight schedule. It's not optimal, but it's not our choice. The 90-day period begins, and there are some very specific actions that are required. The two first public hearings are to consider the composition of the districts within the first 30 days after the resolution's adopted. These 2 hearings are required before you can consider any draft maps. And at least 2 additional public hearings during the 45-day period on the maps of the districts themselves. So the maps will have to be publicly available for at least 7 days before the public hearings. once we bring the maps forward. And if there is a change, they have to be available 7 days before they're adopted by ordinance. The ordinance that we'll adopt establishes the city council districts and also assigns election years to each of the districts. In other words, the sequencing of the elections. Community outreach will include a website pages dedicated to the district election issue, and they'll be updated throughout the process. Dr. Johnson, our consultant, and his staff will draw proposed districts after receiving the input from the first 2 public hearings, and they'll also include any maps prepared and submitted by members of the public, and they'll present the qualifying maps to council at the 3rd public hearing. The council does have the ability to request modifications to the options presented or different options. Adoption of this resolution will get that project started, and I did want to point out on the timeline that we do have a date of August 12th, which is not a regular. We have tried to make these on regular council meetings, but in order to make it 5th, we did want to check your schedule to see if the evening of August 12th would be an opportunity to specifically have the 2nd public hearing for any public testimony.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just add to the city manager's staff report, the reason for having the August 12th meeting is because under the California Voting Rights Act, we only have 30 days from adoption of tonight's resolution to hold the first 2 public hearings that are necessary for us to gather information so that we can compile the maps. So we wouldn't,
Monday to
the
Monday.
second meeting in August is too late.
Would that supersede our
They can-
our meeting on the 19th, or we're just going to, we're gonna have 3 meetings that month?
It was
So that would
anticipated.
coincide with the first one.
Depends on business that needs to be done.
So would it be a morning, does it matter when it is, or can it be any time
It doesn't
on the
matter.
12th? So it could be like the morning?
Well, if it's a public hearing, though, you wanna make it convenient for the public.
That's right.
Okay. So should we have it at different times, like we did with the parks, the park input sessions?
You could hold it at different times so that you ensure that you're getting different sectors of individuals to provide public comment.
Well, I'm just saying, because all of us, we usually have, when we're off, when we're not at city council, we usually meet like in the morning,
Right.
like at 9. And that would be different from like a council meeting
Right.
at 6. Would that be, would
There's
it make much
nothing,
difference?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there's nothing in the Voting Rights Act that would preclude you from holding a meeting at a different time.
We just have to have a meeting.
We just have to notice it.
Afternoon,
Correct.
doesn't matter.
But it does need to be a council meeting where we have a
specify.
quorum of the council
Does it have to
present.
be a week apart?
It does not have to be a week apart, but again, the reason was that we have to meet the 30-day time period. So if we had one on the 5th, we figured we would just try and be consistent and hold a second meeting the following Monday.
No, the 5th
That's
is
a regular
meeting.
council day. That would be a regular council
The
meeting,
12th
is
would be
that
in the
right?
morning.
It would
Mr. Mayor, the
coincide.
5th would be the regular council meeting, correct?
Okay.
The 5th would be, but the 19th.
At this time, we also take public input.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's not a public hearing item, but just as any other item on the agenda, we would take input from the public under the Brown Act.
No, a week
apart.
a week apart, Monday and Monday.
So 5th, 12th, and then the 19th
be a
is just a deadline.
It's a regular council
Be the regular meeting, that's what we have to
Okay.
vote
We'll
on.
have 3 meeting, we may have 3
Would that,
meetings.
would that constitute a meeting?
No,
19th,
Mr. Mayor,
yeah.
members of the council, under the Voting Rights Act, we are allowed to, or members of the public rather, are allowed to submit maps on their own. We do need them in a timely manner though, because they have to be published 7 days prior to consideration at a public hearing. So we need to set some sort of deadline for individuals to
So the
turn in their
public
proposed
has-
maps.
That's the deadline for the public to submit a map, the
Correct.
19th.
And
Okay.
we also likely need to have, if the, our demographer will need to have their map done around that time too, so that we can have the publication for 7
From
days
the
prior.
first 7 days prior to the 5th or the 12th?
7 days prior to the first time we consider it. So
Okay,
that would be
50.
7 days prior to September 3rd.
Okay.
Oh,
That's the August 26th date you
So
see
we
on
just have
the,
to meet the 30-day clock. Okay.
and then we have a 45-day clock.
All righty,
A
I'm
45
fine with
day.
the fine and 12th, 5th and
let's
12th.
go.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we made some changes to this exhibit since the consultant sent it over because it looked like there was an error in the date calculations. So while we are presenting these dates this evening, we do need to run them by the consultant to ensure that they comply with all of the timing requirements. It appears that they do. Under the resolution that's proposed this evening, you are giving the city manager authority to change the public hearing dates if necessary.
If this is wrong, does that invalidate us doing the resolution and becoming lawyer letter proof tonight?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it does not, because there's language in the resolution that allows the city manager to make changes to the public hearing dates.
Okay, so
And
that
those-
wouldn't invalidate the resolution tonight if we
It
change
would-
the dates?
No, it would not. And then also, so that the public knows, once we establish these dates, they'll be posted on the city's website. If there are changes, we will update them and we'll post a new notice on the website.
Okay. Good with the dates.
I am too.
We gotta do it. We gotta do it.
Okay.
August 12th.
Do we have any public input tonight on districting, on what we're talking about in terms of the dates and the maps and any issues? Okay, with that, we'll bring it back to council. Is there a motion
I'll make a motion.
to approve? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Aye.
Mayor Robertson?
Aye. Okay, we'll move on to discussion and direction regarding placement of mayor at large on 2020 ballot for voter consideration and term limits. Report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We had a council request from the mayor to discuss the mayor at large, placement of a mayor at large on the 2020 ballot for voter consideration. And we had a request from the mayor pro tem to discuss term limits for city council members. If staff recommends that the council discuss both matters, and if it would like to consider these matters further, to provide direction to staff so that we can bring back an agenda item with analysis of impacts and costs to placing the mayor at large initiative on the 2020 ballot, along with the process for imposing term limits on city council and any costs associated with that as well.
Thank you. We'll bring this back to council. Since I brought this up on the mayor at large, we talked about it the last time. Since the council went to rotation several years ago, I think there were only two of us. The three new members weren't there for that vote. There has been public input, and people have been telling me, some have said, I thought we elected our own mayor. I thought they elected their own mayor, and no, that has never been the case. The council used to elect the mayor, and what this would do, it would put it on the ballot in 2020 to leave it up to the people whether or not to elect their mayor. But I have heard lots of input over the years that the people would rather be the ones that select the mayor, not 5 people up here and not the calendar. And so that's what this would do. It would put it on the ballot. Whether or not the people would be able to decide who should be the mayor of the town. It doesn't change the type of mayor. It doesn't make it, at least what I'm seeing here, it doesn't make it a strong mayor. It's still a strong city manager form of government, but it would allow the people to elect, in effect, the spokesperson for the council, and the person who, is oftentimes the person who speaks up for the council and who goes to the ribbon cuttings and who represents the city. So, and it would also not give an extra enhanced vote, still be 1/5 vote. So that is the first measure. The second one was recommended by the pro tem.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I haven't heard not one single person saying we need to go to elect our mayor at large. I must live in an opposite world than you. And I really don't think there's
Yeah,
a
you
need,
do.
because having that
Truth and
would put us
truth.
at risk. And the very fact that our infrastructure is in such disarray right now, and we're talking about mayor at large, is why we need term limits. Because if this council, and you've seen it, if we're not gonna work together to betterment the community, then let's move aside and let some other community members have opportunity to do that. Because that is the key issue here. what are we doing to make Selma better? That's the discussion we should be having, not is, I want to be mayor, so I want opportunity to vote for mayor. Because quite honestly, we're here because, Scott, you want to be mayor, your ego wants to be mayor, and we don't need that. We just need to work together. So I see no reason whatsoever why we should even be considering and talking about this mayor at large stuff. We're going to go to districts because this city is growing, and there's a lot of good people who can be on this council. It doesn't have to be us. Someone's been here for 126 years. It's not going to fall apart and go away if Louis Franco is not up here. It's not.
Thought you were talking about Alamos.
Yeah, no, it's not. You know, so we need to put the community first. And if we're going to be here, and you know, at most I'll be here for 2 terms, maybe we will put a little bit more effort into our work and move this community forward. Because that's what really matters. That's what we're talking about. And that's what we need. I don't see zero reason why to do that. It only puts us in legal liability because we're going to go to district to avert a lawsuit. Having the mayor at large will just put us back in square one. It doesn't make sense. So that's the reason why I think we should have term limits. Because, hey, the infrastructure has been bad, like I said, over a decade, almost 2 decades. And the fact that we're not making it priority every single meeting or talking about it is why we need to think the way we do things here.
Any other comments?
I bear to differ. I know we sat, when I was just not a council member, and I was sitting out there just like you folks, and I came to the meetings for almost 3 years consistently. We sat here with a room full of individuals that did not want to go to mayor rotation. And we wanted to vote for our own mayor, like a lot of these other cities get to vote for their mayor. And I know for a fact that even Mr. Bob Allen did research on the cities that got to vote for their mayor. So I know there's a lot of citizens in going door to door that asked me the same thing and wanted to vote for their mayor. Why don't we get to vote for our mayor? So here we are today, and this gives an opportunity to the citizens to put it on the ballot. You can choose whether you want the mayor or you don't, but at least it goes on the ballot so the citizens have a choice.
Any other council members?
Johnny, you want to say
Go
something?
ahead, I'll be last.
You want
Yeah,
the
yeah,
last
I
words
want
or stuff last? I thought I was okay. I was wanting to go first last time. I ended up being last. Okay. Now you know what, guys? I'll be honest. I'm the oldest guy in the council. When I first started, I was the youngest person on the council. But there's an old saying, man. It ain't broken, don't fix it. You know what I mean? In life, and all in city government, and frankly, you made a good point. We're working together. I understand, Johnny too, working together. We're all working together. I understand it. But when I was the mayor, when I left office, Scott became the mayor. See, but I also believe in government. We have to learn from each other. By learning from each other is the position we take. Rotation. Franco, now you're the mayor pro tem. You're learning next role, you be the mayor. So you fall in that role, that category. And by doing that, you become a better servant to the community because you start to take a role that you never took before. And by learning, you learn. Like the citizens out there, they learn from us how things are happening, and we admire the people that come voice their opinion. They have a right to. I'm fine with that. This is America. And we take an oath on this Constitution, this country, who we believe and who we are. And you have a right for freedom of speech.
Shouldn't they be able to elect their own mayor then?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also, I
If
also
you don't want to
believe-
elect your own mayor, then
But
don't
you know
do
what,
it. And
Scott,
if you
but
do,
I-
then do
this
it.
is my opinion. This is
Councilman
my
Alonso
opinion,
talking.
Scott.
I can ask you questions.
I'm good the way it is because, hey, I feel we're not 165,000 people here in the city of Selma. We're a small community still, and we still need that additional help working together as rotation, that we learn from each other to make the city get bigger. I believe in that very strongly. Everybody's got their own opinion. That's fine. That's my opinion.
Great. Councilman Trillo?
Before I say a statement, what is the cost to put a ballot measure for mayor?
I
No.
believe the city clerk sent us an email to that effect last week, and it's somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 during an election has been the traditional cost for a council-sponsored ballot initiative. Is that about correct, city clerk?
25, yeah.
So, so here we are talking about getting a mayorship, and the only thing I'm gonna do is talk to you guys in regards to numbers, just like you said. I'm only a numbers guy, okay? So $2,500, $3,000 of our general fund to put on the ballot. I don't agree with having 4 districts and a mayor at large. If one of us chooses to want to get the public's input, I feel that individual should go and do it himself. I believe that the city, our legal staff has told us that we will be in liabilities if we do not have 5 districts. I think it's in the best interest of the community to make sure every dollar that we spend from this community general fund to doing things like this, it's not right. And you guys can attack me, because I'll keep on saying that how I feel, but spending $1 for this it's not right. It's not correct, and it's not the right thing for this community. I think in districts, I know in the other side of town, there are people that cannot afford to come up with $12 to $15 or $18,000 to run a campaign in this community. Listen, the same accusation he did about a while ago in regards to me was what was being said when I ran for city council. That was 6 months ago. I spent $15,000 to $18,000. The young lady back there swinging her hand, same one, did those accusations. Can you imagine if we have to have people out, one of our community members has to spend $18,000? There's good people that can't afford this. Give them the opportunity. Give that person that doesn't have the money but has a good heart, kind heart, the integrity to be a representative. Give them that opportunity to come and take my seat. I'm not here to want to be here for the life. I have 3 businesses. But I'll tell you what, we need to give every member in this community the ability to be able to come and represent our community at a very minimal rate. If we do it at large, that individual cannot run for mayor because he doesn't have the finances to do and represent our community. At the end of the day, it's about representation. And that's what it's about. So I'm voting no for mayor at large.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tulio. I have to disagree with you. I also ran for my election, and I didn't pay anything near that, so that's not true.
Right, and I brought that up previously, not to be mean, just to put things in perspective in terms of your financial sense. I
respect
question your
everything you
financial
say.
judgment,
Even
and
though it's bad or good.
yeah,
respect
and I think, again, I think your judgment is faulty on this, Councilman Trillo. I think that this goes beyond a dollars and cents decision. I think
just
spending
don't know.
$2,800 is a small price to pay for democracy. And I
What
think
about
the more,
$30,000
so
for
I think the more voter choice that the folks have, the better for the city. And this actually allows the voters to choose their own mayor. Now, the way I see this would work would be, we would go to 5 districts initially. And then we're gonna have a census next year. The districts have to change after that anyway. So after the 2020 election and after the census, it would be redrawn if the mayor at large passed.
Right.
And the term limits, if they're on there. And then in 2022, the mayor would go on the ballot as at large. Just to put it in, again, historical perspective from Dr. Doug Johnson, what he said, what I heard him say, and what I believe is the objective truth, is that no city has ever successfully challenged a Voting Right Act's lawsuit saying that it didn't have to district. No city has ever won that. No city has ever lost a legal challenge under the Voting Rights Act to have a mayor at large. And so we have Sanger, we have Parlier, we have Orange Cove that elects their own mayor. And Sanger did it as a council-sponsored initiative to put it on the ballot when they were districting. So it makes sense if you want to have to choose your own mayor, again, not a separate vote, not more of a vote, no more weighted vote than any other council member, and part of the council and absolutely a team member, but someone who runs for the whole city to be the mayor that gives people the choice. If you don't want to elect your mayor, then vote no. But why don't you give the people who do want to elect their mayor a chance to put him or her in office? It hasn't been done, and I've heard a lot of people who want that to happen. Why not at least give it a chance? If that's wrong and people are so dead set, it'll go down and it won't pass. What are you so afraid of about having the people choose the mayor instead of you people or the calendar? What are you so afraid of?
Mr. Mayor,
Let the people decide.
Mr. Mayor, the fact that you want to put this on the ballot, quite frankly, we all know it, you want to be mayor, you want to run, you have the finances, which is fine.
Go ahead and make it about me, Mr. Franco.
I am making
but
it
it's
about you 'cause you're the one who put it
democracy.
on the
And,
motion.
enough of your smoke
I mean-
screens. You've done it all night tonight. You
weren't
did
here
it
at
at
the
Townsend,
meeting.
and now you're doing it here.
Mr.
and I'm
Mayor,
tired
are
of
you
it
going to
because
talk
this
over
is
me
about
or are you going to let me
democracy.
speak? I know. Are you going to let me
We need
speak or are you
to
going to
just
talk over me?
Stop making it about
order.
me.
I know.
So why did we even go to a rotation? We all know why, don't we? Do you want me?
It was
We
a
need to go
3-2
back.
vote.
3-2 vote.
It
Yeah,
was a 3-2 vote.
Why did we go? But why did it even come up? Do we need to go to that, or are we going to move forward?
We had a room full of people that urged the council not to vote yes.
Yeah.
The only person who wanted votes, because I asked the people to raise their hands, who wanted to go to rotation? The only person who wanted to do it was the council member's husband, who started the process.
Listen.
Come on, let's
Let's-
get with this
let-
meeting. Let's
You
get
can
done
have an
with this
outburst,
meeting.
but yell already. The whole reason we went to rotation was, quite frankly, because of your behavior as your first term as mayor. And that's the only reason.
Oh,
Okay,
my
keep making it
goodness.
about me. You know, this, Mr. Franco, is an
Get-
unprofessional, sophomoric
Exactly.
debate that you're engaging in, and I refuse. As the mayor, I apologize to the people here that have to witness this. Let's get to a level where we represent the people. Let's get this
That's
meeting
right.
back to doing the people's business instead of your
Your
personal business.
What's my personal business? What's my
It-
personal business?
To attack me. So
Why would I
let's
wanna
bring
attack
this
you?
back.
Quiet.
I'm
Let's-
talking about what's best for the
Enough,
community.
Enough.
To put it
Let's
at
bring
legal
this
risk
back.
for no reason. No reason. Zero
That's
reason.
your opinion.
Okay, so you're saying you oppose it because of legal
Yeah, I
risk?
actually make a
Okay, make
motion
the
to
motion.
not move forward this resolution. Can I do that? Can I make a motion right now?
Yes, you could make a
That would be an
motion.
amended motion.
But I
Discussion,
don't think that there is.
direction regarding placement, so
Is this
Right,
just
there
a
is-
discussion
Are you
item?
Mr.
Excuse
Mayor,
me, I can't hear the
Miss-
attorney.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, there is no staff recommendation. Staff's recommendation is to discuss and provide direction. So any motion can be made, and I believe that Mayor Pro Tem has made a motion to not move forward with the mayor at large.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, can you've heard enough from us, now let us hear from you. Who would like to come up and comment on this matter?
Teresa Salas, 3221 Lee Street. I heard what you heard, that no city who has been sued or taken it to court, they never lost for mayor at large. But they did have to go to court. They did have to fight it. So that's still gonna cost us money. It's still gonna cost the city money if somebody decides to call us on it. So it's not free. It's not a freebie. It's gonna cost the city money that we don't have extra money. We need police officers. We need all these other things that we're talking about, infrastructure. We don't have extra money to be fighting in court just in case somebody takes us to court. The other thing is that I see what you're saying, that you've got one person who wants to represent the whole city. So he's got to make his campaign cover the whole city. You've got to be in the barrio, you have to be in country club, you've got to be all over the city, and you have to have the money to be able to do that. I ran for city council. I did not win. The people who did win outspent me 3-1. That's the way I saw it. And you can ask the city clerk how much people spent. Okay, so it does take money to run a campaign. And if you don't have the money to fund a campaign for mayor for the whole city, then you're not gonna run. The other thing is that the city's gonna be in 4 pieces. There's gonna be 1 councilman for each piece, but that mayor's gonna come from one of those pieces. So that means, in essence, somebody's getting 2 votes. And I don't think that's fair either. So those are my opinions as far as a mayor at large. I don't think it's necessary. I think we have 5 people. I think it needs to stay that way. Councilman Avalos said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've got 5 districts, 5 councilmen, and now we just divide them up into 5 districts to make the city equally represented by 5 people. When I worked for the city, the councilmen voted who they wanted to be mayor. And it was an old buddy system. I'll vote for you this time, and next time you vote for me, and then you vote for me, and then you vote for me.
So do
and
you
it
feel
got
that's
ugly.
fair?
And it got, no.
Do you
It
feel
got
that's
ugly.
fair?
That
Okay.
got ugly.
Thank you.
That got ugly.
Thank
So the
you.
rotation thing works. If you belong to any of the service organizations in the city of Selma, there's a president pro tem, and down the line. And like he said, they are groomed for their spot for the next person. But I do agree with Councilman Franco about term limits. We don't need lifetime politicians. We've got enough of those in Washington. We don't need any here.
I agree.
Thank you.
Let me all make you feel better. Believe me, we do not plan on being up there 20, 30 years either. Whether my husband's up there or I'm on the healthcare district board or any boards or boards, once you make term limits for nonprofit organizations and other boards as well, that would be great. The problem is also what you guys are not getting, who want to be against this, $2,900 and allow the citizens to vote for the mayor is not a lot of money, and let them vote yes or no if they want that on there. Secondly, it has nothing to do if you have money or not to run for council or mayor or anything, because we actually don't have any money. We give it right back to the community time and time again, year and year after every year. We give it away because we don't have any kids. The community kids are our kids. But at the end of the day, you don't have to have a dime, because if they want to elect you, the citizens want to elect you, they will want to support you financially. So it has nothing to do with you having money or not. They will support you, even if it's just $20, all the family members $20, whatever it is. That's the support of the citizens financially. They'll come to you and say they want to support you financially and want to elect you. So that's the way you get behind that. Or actually, the citizens or businesses get behind you because you're intelligent enough to make the right decisions. And you do the right things for the citizens of Selma. It's not a political game all the time. What you do, what you give in life, you get back. What you want to teach your kids to do the right thing, hey, you better remember it's going to happen in your family. So teach them to do the right thing. It's not always about politics. Be the right person, be a good person, and that's just the way it should be. Let the citizens vote.
Good evening, council again. Frank Hernandez, 14871 South Highland. The gentleman up here, Mr. Trujillo, says, and Mr. Avalos, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This looks broken to me. This looks very broken. Whatever procedure, process you all go to, whoever gets to sit in the middle, it don't work. His ego, your ego, his ego, her ego, it's broken. He's talking about, I don't want the city of Selma to spend $2,900. Oh my God, $2,900. Mr. Franco, $2,900. Where was the outrage and the outcry with all the other fumbling of Selma's money? You know? Let the people vote. Okay? Juan, Raul, Pepe, John, David, everybody. Let their voices be heard. There's nobody here to scream and yell. Yeah, let us vote. You guys are going to make the decision for all of the citizens that, oh, you don't get to vote or you do get to vote. I really don't care whether you guys play, musical chairs and, pulling straws. Let the people vote. That's all. Thank you.
Sandy Nicewander, 2474 Country Club Lane. Please do not do this. Our community is too small. If our community was 3 times, 4 times bigger than it is right now, it might be different. But right now, we need the 5 districts. We need representation, since we're going to districts, from those 5 districts. And we don't need a duplication of one district because we have a mayor at large. You went to rotation, that seems to work. You trained somebody underneath you. Let it stay at rotation and continue that going forward. In the future, as we grow, because we are growing, then you can consider mayor at large again. But at this point in time, we're not big enough. We need individual districts because we need to comply with the law, but by the same token, we do not need a mayor at large. Going to term limits, I think that's a good idea. Whether it's 2 terms, whatever, that's a discussion that you're going to be having in the future. And I agree with term limits, but I do not agree with mayor at large. And I would appreciate it if you do not go forward with that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Bob? No? Okay, we'll bring it back to council. So is this motion whether or not to put this on the ballot, or is this to research how much it will cost to do a study on this? I'm just asking for clarification on the wording.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, because we didn't have council direction and it was going to take a significant amount of legal resources as well as staff time, the city manager thought it was prudent to bring it to the council for discussion and direction. If you'd like to move forward, this evening staff can do additional research and then bring it back to the council for further consideration.
Okay. So, is there a, so
There was-
would the motion be to bring this
I have
matter
a
back for
motion,
future consideration?
Didn't I have a motion first?
Correct.
to
Mayor
move
Pro
forward
Tem,
with this?
Mayor Pro Tem did make a motion.
To repeat the motion?
I make a motion that we
Pull it off the table, what?
not do this or discontinue it or not move with the mayor at large at this time.
There are 2 items.
There's- yeah,
There's
what
also
about
term
the
limits.
terms?
What
Okay.
would
Miss-
we do?
Term 2.
And come back with a report on term limits. For that, or,
What-
okay,
what's-
how about
You
this?
can't- you have to remove it.
I'll do it.
You have to
I'll
remove
clear everything, we can start over. I'll make a motion
We can always
to
come back
end
with
both
that.
items, both the mayor at large and term limits.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, you have a motion
Is there a
on the floor.
second?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco,
All right,
Councilmember Avalos,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra,
No.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Aye.
Mayor Robertson.
No. Okay, passes. People don't get to elect their next mayor. Okay. We'll move on to item 6, consideration of a resolution adopting findings to dispense with the competitive bidding process and approving the emergency purchase of a Danco F-550 Type 6 fire apparatus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. The resolution you have before you will allow us to purchase make an emergency purchase of a Type 6 fire apparatus, of which you're probably asking yourself, what is a Type 6 fire apparatus? A Type 6 is basically what we call a brush truck. Sure, yeah, go ahead.
excuse me, chief, a type 6 is what?
It's what we consider a brush truck.
Okay.
See if I can. So this is a Type 6. And this is actually the very unit that we are looking to purchase. The Type 6 is, or the brush truck, it's a, as you can see, it's lifted. It's a 4-wheel drive apparatus with a small pump on it, and this particular one happens to have a 400-gallon water tank on it. What it's designed to, can you go to the next one? So it's designed with a 4-wheel drive, like I said, a smaller tank and pump capacity. It's designed to travel off-road where our larger fire engines are having difficulty. The reason that we would need to, that we are looking to purchase something like this, and I think the next one discusses funding. So let's talk briefly about the funding that for purchasing this. It's not coming out of the general fund. We're going to be using our strike team revenue, the funding that we get from the state for assisting our mutual aid partners on these large brush fires. We're looking at, we have a combination between the 2017 and the 2018 fire seasons, and at this point we have a funding balance of $210,787. This is what we've saved up that's extra after our commitments have been met to the city. And those commitments involve reimbursement for overtime, our overtime costs, and also each year a $100,000 revenue that we take out of this, and then what we have left is our balance. So after the last 2 years of saving up, we do have enough funds within that program to purchase the truck. Why do we need it? So we've seen an increase, and it's been steady over the last 2 years of calls out in open fields, whether they're grass fires or debris fires. And as you can see, last year at this time we had 45 of these types of calls, and this year we're sitting at about 54. One of the reasons that this year, one of the things that we've noticed is we're having apparatus get stuck. When we used to respond to these calls, they typically started roadside. So we can pull up and stretch our hose lines from the road and stretch out and make an attack on these fires. Now we're seeing them starting out in the middle of fields. And we're having to look for dirt roads. Sometimes we're not able to find roads at all, and we're trying to navigate through fields to get out to these fires to put them up. And we've had problems. So far this year, we've had 2 engines get stuck, and that happened within about 2-week time frame. One of them was ours, and one of them was Fresno County's engine. Can we move forward a little bit there? So I'll give you a couple brief pictures here of what the apparatus looks like. That's the back of it. Again, a small pump on the back, a small tank of water. It's mobile. You can see the small hose line there. We can actually drive it out into these fields with 4-wheel drive and attack these fires, again, without having to take our large apparatus out there. We're also able to do it and limit the stress on personnel because we can drive it. Now we have to take hose lines, but we train for it a lot. It's pretty routine, but it is pretty taxing, especially this time of year. We carry several hundred feet of hose on our backs. Our crews just did one on a fire over the weekend, or I believe it was in the last week, where they laid 1,000 feet of hose to extend out to put the fire out. With this type of apparatus, we can actually, in some instances, not all, but instances where we have an avenue, we can drive the apparatus out and around the fire with 1 to 2 people and put the fire out that way, instead of the extensive operation of laying 1,000 feet of hose or whatever the distance may be. That's just a picture of the cab, and I think the next one is some compartments, and we move forward there. So these are some of the areas around town. I have 4 or 5 pictures here, and these are just a few of them. We have our community is surrounded with these fields that we're having to deal with not only with brush and grass, but also with debris, unfortunately, from homeless encampments. This fire here is the one that our apparatus got stuck on. They were trying to get back near to that house where the fire was spreading towards to do a protection on it. There was no road to get back there, so as they were headed back engine got stuck. Fortunately, they were able to keep the fire away from it, still get to the location of the house and keep it off there, but it did have to be towed out. This is where the county one, our county engine got stuck, and this is the one this is why we're doing it via an emergency purchase. Because I was sitting there, I was looking at this engine, and this is a concept that we've talked about now for a couple of years, that we thought it would be a good idea to have this type of apparatus. But I was sitting here, and our engine made this turn, and the fire was just to the right outside of the screen there. Our engine was able to make it. We don't know if our engine loosened the dirt up or not, but the county engine tried to make the turn and didn't. It slid off on the inner side of it and was stuck. The tires were buried, and the unit was sitting at a very awkward angle. The mechanic, we were sitting there watching this, and the mechanic, they came out, and they were worried about how they were going to pull it out. They felt if they tried to pull it out like they normally would, just pulling it backwards, the engine could roll over. And that was something that really struck me, that I'm sitting here looking at a $500,000 piece of equipment, and it's trying to get out to put out a fire, and it got stuck. And there was a potential for some serious damage, obviously, if it would have rolled over. And every time we take our apparatus out on a road like this, we run that risk. Every time an engine gets stuck, we run that risk of serious damage. Our new engine is up getting the radios put on it. It should be in service in the next week or two. So we'll have two almost brand new $500,000 pieces of apparatus. And for them to be trying to get back into these areas to put these fires out, we're taking a risk each time we do it, of doing some serious damage. These are a couple of other areas here that we could or either have had to or could have to access. So you can see these are all little small, narrow pathways. Some of them are solid, some of them are not. Sometimes we don't know. But in each of these locations, we have a potential for going out for a fire like this. So as we talked about, we will be financing a certain portion of this. So the cost of the apparatus is $200,600. That's an extensive amount, but it is less than $500,000. It's designed to take on these types of incidents. We'll be taking immediately out of our strike team fund $125,000, and we would finance $75,000. That's just so we don't eliminate all of that funding that we use right now. We would finance the $75,678 over a 5-year period, with the annual payments being $16,000. Now, our objective would be to use additional funding that we anticipate bringing in this year and next year to pay off the apparatus as soon as possible, so that it does not have an effect next year on the general fund. That, again, is what our ultimate goal is to do. Using the funding that we have, using this strike team funding, it's always been something that as we've gotten it, you've approved a purchase of a set of JAWs. You've also approved our health and wellness program. My philosophy has always been on it to take that funding that we get back from our mutual aid partners and balance using that to benefit our firefighters that are out there doing the work, our community as a whole. How can we give back to the community and our mutual aid partners, and being able to do that at the same time. We feel like this, using our funds to purchase a Type 6 like this, would accomplish all of those things. Any questions?
You know,
Yeah.
actually,
Chief?
good job. Those areas you're talking about, I've been out there addressing with the homeless issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I know exactly what those areas you're talking about as far as your equipment, and it's no brainer really. This mobile unit that you're requesting, it gives you mobility in geographical areas instead of using our major heavy equipment, or one already got stuck already. So
Right.
it's a proven fact.
Correct.
It's gonna have, but the mobility gives you, more definite, attack, quicker on the scene. Instead of driving real slow and trying to wiggle your way in, this unit will give you mobility. It's quicker, four-wheel drive system. But another question I'm gonna ask you, with this particular vehicle, would it be used for, a joint,
Yes, we would try to balance that.
I'm
Obviously,
just kinda
we want to
I wanna
have
know.
it available for the community. But these types
we
of
have a
apparatus are called out quite a bit, and it could be considered an investment into the
That's why I'm
program
asking
that we do.
question there.
And it will be, if we are able to purchase this, will be the only
Mobile unit?
department in the area south of the Fresno area that has a unit like this. So we would be able to assist Kingsburg.
So it's a-
Obviously, Fresno County, they have what they call their patrol, but it's stationed at their 87 station, was just south of the Fresno area. So we would be much closer in being able to help them and eliminate their risk as well. They have a tendency to get their engines stuck
And
quite a bit.
I like your
unfortunately.
concept because you're thinking outside the box. Not only for the, city of Selma, but also, as far as equipment, utilizing mobile units to get to the scene quicker and tight situations and a four-wheel drive system that a big unit full of water couldn't get to.
Correct.
You can get there quicker and stabilize that area.
Right.
I get it. And also, other surrounding cities will glad to use our unit because we'd be able to be confiscated. by money.
I'm sure they would. I think most of, many of our communities, Kingsburg, us, Sanger County, we've all just purchased brand new, what we call the Type 1 fire engines, the big
Yeah.
ones. So anytime we could minimize the risk to those units by traveling out into these fields, I think
Now,
is
how
a
many
big
will go,
advantage.
how many will be on that? Two will be on that?
It is an extended cab.
Okay.
So it can fit 4. We would be staffing it on our responses within the city with 2.
Okay. That was the next question I was gonna ask you.
Chief,
And
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, the total purchase, 200,675. So you said you have 125,000 that you're gonna use from the strike team, right?
Correct.
And then use, the remaining and finance it for over 5 years?
Correct.
Is that at an interest or zero interest?
It was at an interest, I believe it was 3.5, I
3.5?
believe is what it was. Yeah, it was real low. We're hoping, like I said, my objective is that first payment wouldn't be due until the next fiscal year. And our objective would be to have the funds to pay it off prior to that happening.
So my other question would be is you wouldn't be able to get this additional monies from the Measure S fund?
Like I said, my goal was to use our strike team fund. And I think it's a good investment to be able to do so. It would free up Measure S funds for other things.
Smart, I like it. Let's go.
3.16 is actually the interest rate.
What is it?
3.16 is what we've been quoted for an interest rate.
How much Measure S money was allocated to the police station? Is it 300?
Couple hundred?
Couple hundred?
Yeah.
When would that be expended?
It hasn't been expended yet. We'll make the transfer in the fiscal year that just passed into those project funds.
You'll be putting it in the police station fund from Measure S, and then that'll be it. A one-time transfer?
That's all that's been approved at this time, yes.
Okay. So how much is, I just forgot from the budget, how much is left in the Measure S after expenditures?
I don't have that information with
Okay.
me. I want to say close to 700, but I don't know for sure.
Most of it's promised, most of it's encumbered at this point?
Well, it still has to transfer the couple hundred that's been allocated to the police station, so there should be additional funds still after that, yes.
Okay. And then, are there new accounting requirements for capital leases? Are there new accounting treatments?
No, just that all the leases need to be in the general fund itself, but the terms of the agreement should be fine.
Okay. And you're planning on paying that off as soon as you can, as opposed
As
to
soon as we
carrying
can.
it for 5 years?
It's difficult to say because obviously The funding is not guaranteed, but based upon the seasons that we've had over the last several years, we're pretty confident in receiving that funding and being able to pay
Can
it
you
off.
back a big unit up and then attach a hose from that unit to the much smaller water tank?
I believe there would be a 2.5 discharge on it and that's basically what allows us to fill that tank.
So you
So
could
if we
transfer,
had
you
it-
put the truck in a safe place.
Correct,
The big
right.
engine and then the small one in
Back
the.
that up to it and then dump the tank, dump
grass
one
fire.
tank into the other.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for council?
No,
Chief, you
man.
said this is a demo, so if you were to purchase this, how soon would you get it?
Our rep is ready. I told him I'd be sending him a text message as soon as I knew one way or the other
Yeah.
tonight, and he'll
Oh,
start
okay.
Gets
drawing
a
up a
PO, you
contract.
get it on Monday or something like that?
I mean, there's probably going to be a little bit of time. He said within 30 days.
Okay.
We're hoping sooner.
Maybe tonight.
There's some inspections. We got to be able to do an inspection on it to make sure there's no damage or anything like that.
Okay.
As
Scott,
soon as we
I'm-
get that done, we're going to have it here.
How much
Okay,
would you be leaving on the table without doing the competitive bidding? Are there a lot of these out there? Or do you pretty much know, does the rep know pretty much where they're available?
We like this spec. This apparatus was available for us to see. They were just finishing it when we went back to do the inspection for our new engine. This company is I call them, I guess they're a partner company. I call them a sister company to Schmiel, who manufactures our engines. Our goal is to standardize our fleet as much as possible. So our Schmiel makes the ladder trucks and the fire engines, where Danco, the factory's right next door,
Okay.
makes the smaller apparatus. We were actually able to tour the facility and saw this unit being built. We liked the specs that it had. But if we did spec this out brand new, it would be, I think it was $10,000 in addition, and then it would take 250 days or so. So we wouldn't have it until next
wouldn't-
year.
About two
Okay.
days.
So this
Okay.
would get it sooner for this summer.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
now.
that's our goal, is to get it right away. I don't want to see one of our fire engines in that precarious position that the county
No,
engine
even
was
though
in.
they're insured, don't have a replacement for it, and they take a year to rebuild.
Sure.
Does the
Okay.
public have any input tonight on the fire engine, the Danco
Type 6.
Type 6?
F550?
F550?
Big, there's a lot of letters.
I would just like to show the chiefs. Do I have to announce myself
Why
again?
not? One more time.
Frank Hernandez. What's my address? I can't remember. 14871 South Highland. I'm just showing them 1-year-old units that are $100,000 less than the one he wants to. I mean, since we're all on the topic of saving Selma money, I don't know if you've been here.
Mhm.
You look through any of these apparatuses.
There
2018.
are, correct, there are a handful of them online that you can purchase.
I mean, and since these trucks are gonna be beat, and they're not gonna be parade vehicles, they're gonna be used work trucks, right? You're gonna use them. Wouldn't it be kind of cost effective to acquire with what you wanna spend, instead of buying one, getting two? That would be a better investment, right?
We don't have the staffing, unfortunately,
Oh.
to man 2 of them, but
But anyways, just pointing that out. There are used units that can do just, if not more. That's it.
Have you researched all the used units as well? And
we've looked
compared
into,
them?
I looked into some of them. I did have some concerns, and I don't know if any of those were the ones the gentleman was looking up, but I had looked up a couple that hadn't been pump tested. That's always a concern. If it had been pump tested in a couple of years, that's an issue. Just things like that. This one I'm familiar with. We like the specs. Our staff likes the specs. We feel like it will be a benefit to the community.
Mhm. It's always good to look at all the units, though. Definitely,
Okay.
definitely shop everything out. Is there a
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
call the roll, please?
Councilmember Trujillo.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco.
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra.
Aye.
Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that we will move on to departmental reports. City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Nothing additional to report this evening.
Okay. City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, nothing to report.
Okay. Department of Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple things. As you noticed, there was no AP register within your packet today. One of my staff was on vacation, so she wasn't able to produce a report prior to going. We will get caught back up our next council meeting and have all that information. Also, I attended the Central Kings Groundwater Sustainability Agency meeting. They have finished their GP plan, the general sustainability plan that's got to be developed by each GSA. That has been prepared and is completed. There we will recently draft pretty soon as well. So we'll have information for that for later. Also, here at City Hall, the EDC is hosting an event. It's for businesses looking to do some improvements to their facilities for energy efficiency. So that will be held here at City Hall Friday, July 26th for any businesses that are welcome to attend. That's all I have.
Great,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Public Works Director.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, real quick, I'm happy to say that we're going to begin advertising and recruitment for a maintenance worker for Public Works Department.
Great. Good job.
Also, Ringo Park restrooms passed their final inspection last week through the city, and the county inspector was out Thursday, and we're waiting for a letter back from him, but it's a green light.
All right.
That's all I have.
Moving forward. Thank you for that. Okay.
Thank you.
Fire Chief Peterson.
I think with all the shaking that we had going on lately, the mayor thought it'd be a good idea to talk about our disaster preparedness a little bit. So we do have, the city does have an emergency management plan. It was developed in 2009, 2010 by the City of Selma Management Team / Disaster Council. And they put together a plan, and we could really have a pretty extensive discussion on the details of the plan, but it is in place. It's based off of what we call the Standardized Emergency Management System, and that's throughout the state of California, and then federally, the National Incident Management System. So all of these things, they combine, and the system runs off what we in the fire service call the incident command system. It was developed in the probably late 70s, early 80s in the state of California to deal with all the wildfires. So the system allows us to expand and start off as the emergency dictates. So we can start off with an incident commander, something like that, and then branch out as the emergency expands. So our system is based that way. The system, the plan evaluated hazards, just kind of like we did, I think it was last month when we approved the county's emergency management plan, and they had evaluated certain hazards that we were at risk for. Our plan did the same thing back then. And then the system is set up for our EOC would be here at City Hall. So if we had to open up and we had an emergency such as this, we would open up City Hall, the council chambers as our emergency operations center. Staff would be recalled back, and we would set up our command post here. And then the plan, like I said, it's pretty extensive. It goes over the various details for each department, checklists for everybody to go over, and just it's a nice guideline.
How often do you run drills?
We have actually
preparedness?
just started talking about doing one. Just there are several of us that are new to our positions within department staff, so we thought it would be a good idea to do so. I had just had a meeting with Steve Johnson from Cal Water. They have a person that they utilize for tabletop exercises. He was very generous, said that they'd be happy to help us out with that. So I think that's something we're going to be working towards the near future. But we're also had discussed, we're updating it as well. Like I said, 2009, 2010, there were some minor adjustments to the plan in 2015. But just looking through it, there are a few things that need to be updated within the plan. But we're well prepared and.
So like advances in technology, like going to 5G is gonna speed up communications.
There are certain comms plans now that we can use that are better than they were then. There are some
Drones.
issues with the backup EOC, which at the time they list as our training room, but that was when it was over at the firehouse and had a generator attached to it, which now we're across the street and we don't. So
some things that.
so there are just a few little things like that we need to work on. But I think we're well prepared, and if hopefully we never need it. Yeah, knock on the wood. But hopefully we never need it. But
Oh yeah, that
if
last
we do,
quake, I mean, it came out of nowhere.
Ready to
It's
go.
shallow, but wow.
Yeah.
7.1.
it moved things around pretty good. So
Yeah. Just swaying back and forth.
any questions or anything? Otherwise, that's
Anybody-
all I have.
Anybody from the public have any questions about Selma's emergency preparedness plan? Okay, we'll bring it back. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Police Chief Garner.
Mayor, members of the council, in addition to the information you received in your package, I wanted to make you aware of a vehicle abatement operation that we're going to be wrapping up tomorrow. We started last Thursday and Friday going through the city, tagging vehicles that are abandoned on the roadway. Just a little background, in 2016, we received some funding through our vehicle abatement program to run periodic operations. We're coming to the end of that funding source. We wanted to complete this operation before that funding runs out. We tagged 128 vehicles found on the street throughout the city that were obviously abandoned on Thursday and Friday of last week. We started the follow-up. Those were all tagged for 72-hour notice. Started the follow-up for that today. 91 of the 128 were compliant, meaning that they had been moved when we followed up. 14 vehicles were cited for being illegally parked, and 12 were towed, and we'll finish the operation tomorrow.
Great.
So,
That's
Chief,
it.
are those just on the street?
These
or
are all on the
lawns
street.
too?
No, they're not yard cars. These are just
Yep.
on the street.
Were there any trucks that you ticketed that were illegally parked in the city? The big rigs?
I don't know if they were ticketed as part of this operation. We have, over the last couple of months, received information, mostly from Public Works, that spot these trucks that are illegally parked, and we've gone out on each one and either cited them or moved
Do
them.
we know how many have been cited this year? How many trucks?
I'd have to check to see. So,
I know it was a concern of citizens about the trucks parking in the city and leaving them there. Trucks, semis.
The semis, yeah.
Yeah, like the tractor trailers, the rigs. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question for the chief. Chief, just looking at the report, I just wanted to confirm, have you authorized, we authorized the 2 additional
correct.
police officers. Have those been filled? I still see there's a vacant.
Yeah, one was filled.
Okay.
On the 5th of this month, I believe it was. And I'm going to be doing interviews for the next 3 candidates later this week.
Okay.
So we should have that filled hopefully by the time that I have another meeting.
Mhm.
So
And then what about your administrative staff?
the filing deadline for applications for the administrative assistant ended Friday, this past Friday at 5 p.m. Last time I checked, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday of last week, we had nearly 20 applicants.
Okay.
So it's a good pool. We'll be
Good.
moving to get that filled as soon as we can.
Okay, great.
I got a question about the stats. Are we gonna see that in the personnel status report? Admin assistant, that you're gonna be
Yeah,
filling it?
it'll be added as soon as we hire somebody.
Thank you. Right. Parks and Community Services, nothing? Okay. That we will bring it back to City Council. Councilman Trujillo?
I attended the farmer's market, attended a meeting for the Selma Business Alliance. I've been attending a couple of meetings with some various business owners in regards to economic development, which we'll be bringing to you in the future.
Thank you. Councilperson Guerra?
Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Councilman Avalos?
Oh, okay. I stopped by and seen the Boys and Girls Club, just checking in on the Boys and Girls Club in that area, running through the area. And also I attended the farmer's market as well. And then I had a special invitation in Fresno to attend person running for president, I was and also Jim Costa was there, and I got to talk to him a little bit and reach out some issues in our community and other communities. That was a good dialogue there. And also, the other thing too, we're gonna miss our employee. You know, she worked very hard in our community here in the city of Selma, Tesla, you know. She's very quiet spoken lady, but we're gonna miss her, you know. You know, she kept, you know, things intact as far as the health care and the pension situation and everything. So people like that they're tough shoes to fill. And this individual that came today is going to take her place. Like Scott says, you have big shoes to fill, right?
Sure is.
Yeah, and I hope the best for Tesla in retirement. And it's sad to say to see somebody leave our city that's been here a long time. You know, it's very important to have experience in life as a veteran to teach the next generation. It's very important. And I always believe in that very strongly. This is what society's made on. You know, so when I leave office, whenever it takes place, I'm happy what I see because you guys are the young people. I came as a young person myself, you know, and it's moving forward in life. It's still going, and it'll still continue going. And I thank the people that come voice their opinion every day out here when they come to the council. I like it. That's good. But when it comes down to it, we're the decision makers and the policy makers, and we make a decision and we move forward, and that's how it is. And I thank people very much that work for the city. They're the hard workers that make the city look good. I thank you guys. All the way down to the city attorney, all the way down. Thank you. That's all I gotta say.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I know the assistant city manager mentioned this, but I know you're working on the Mountain View traffic study report, right? Do you have an estimate on when you think we'll be hearing that as a council?
Reach out to Trail Trans, try and see if we can have them come in and do a presentation on the study itself. I'll try and reach out to them this week.
Okay, I think it's important that we hear that, especially as you know, Mayor, with COG getting ready to do their extended project list, that we know, advocate for all the projects that we want on there. So we needed the details for that before we can have the mayor do that. Also, I did attend the Kings Basin Water Authority Board meeting last month, but I will not be able to attend the meeting this 17th. Our alternate, Isaac Moreno, has already agreed to attend in my place, but I still suggest that perhaps a council member, if they're free, would go. It's very informative. Water issues are always important to the city.
What's the location of that meeting?
Same place.
The water board.
Bureau.
The Farm Bureau
Yeah.
in Fresno?
Yeah.
I've been to one of those. So if anybody would like to go, what time is it?
Yeah, July 17th, 9:30 a.m. They have them early, because they're all farmers. They all get up at 5 in the morning or something.
Yes, in 2 days.
And then also, Isaac, if we can get a list of projects or what we can do with the state, $1.5 million for our storm drains, brought to council. Because I know there's a little timeline before we get that money, but also, you said they think there might be several projects that it could be used for, so.
Yeah, there's 3 different projects that are mentioned in the state budget. One was Rockwell Pond, the other one was just storm drains in general, and there was one, Branch Canal,
Right.
was the third. So we're trying to figure out what that
Yeah,
dynamic looks like. Do we gotta chop it into 3s? Can we pick one project? I mean, how do we do that?
If we get the
So-
details with probably staff's recommendation on what's the most feasible way to use this money, get the most bang for the buck, for lack of a better word.
And we can come back with information as to what we know and what we will recommend for best bang for the buck. But my understanding is that we are waiting to hear from the state. The senator's office did contact us and let us know by the end of the month we should be hearing from a state representative from the funding agency to give us more clarification about, as Assistant City Manager mentioned, how we allocate it to those 3 different projects.
Right.
Yeah.
Because also I know a lot of times when you get awarded these money, it's not like you just get it the next month. You'll get it 3 months, or you'll get it in quarterly installments, so it's not really that you're getting, they may not be getting 1.5 at once, but I'd just like to know how we can use that as soon as possible. And that's it for me.
Okay. Yeah, this funding source came out of a different budget. Last time it came out of the BCSS. I think it's the budget that this year it's coming out of the Water Authority, so their parameters may be a little bit different. So once we get all that flushed out, then we can have a little better understanding of what we can and can't do.
Is water conveyances on that list of potential uses to get the water to the storm drain, to get the runoff? Because I know the city's needs.
That's what it's referring
about
to,
3
yeah.
million
When it refers to storm drains, it's taking the pumps off of dumping into the dishes
from the
for
different
CID.
sources.
And it
Okay.
pushes them into our ponding basins for
And is that an
recharge.
appropriation? The money
It is
that
an
actually came
appropriation.
through, so it's like an earmark.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I get the status of moving the training facility to the maintenance yard? Is there a timeline on that yet? The fire training facility?
Oh,
I think the point at now is that we still have, we've had it for a while, the quote to actually do the move. I think right now we're waiting for an agreement to analyze the dirt and determine what we can do with the dirt that's located at City Yard right now.
Okay.
So the dirt needs to be tested to see what contaminants it has.
Soils tested.
That'll allow us to determine whether we can move it ourselves and just put it into one of our basins, or put it out somewhere else, or if we're gonna have to mitigate that measure. So that's where we're in this. So I'll try and bring our packet to council next month. I've been pushing it out because I've been dealing with other agenda topics.
Right.
So I now have time to come back and recirculate that one.
So I just heard from the Fresno County Rural Transit Agency director that they're ready to roll. You know, if they get that last acre and a half, I mean, great, they can add on to that later, but they're also applying for another 9 million. I think he'll do a presentation in a while on that to expand the facility even more, which would make it a little more state of the art, which would be really nice, add more employees and create more jobs in our city, which will be good. And I think he's just waiting for a green light. Also, if it's going to be more than that 100,000 that I think they budgeted, you should probably talk to him, because there'll probably be hopefully some room there too. If it costs more than that, you know, with the hazmat, if there's soils abatement, there might be some leverage there, especially if they're going after another $9 million in funding for the Selma maintenance facility. So that would really be helpful. So just, you know, coordinate that with them definitely, and hopefully we'll get a timeline on that at some point. Thanks. I attended the Chamber's 3rd of July fireworks show at the high school baseball field this year. Thanks for the invitation from Bob and Mary Allen. And thanks to all the Chamber volunteers that went out there on a pretty hot evening and donated their time to make that happen. That was a nice award, too, that you gave to Leslie Nelson, a Spirit Award. It's very nice to see her get that, well-deserved. The animal shelter, lots of dogs came in that night. Lots of dogs came in the next day. So a lot of them came out. We had a good record getting dogs back to the owners, but you know, we're full again, just like we do every year this time. So if you know anybody that's missing their dog or their cat, send them our way. Appreciate Mike Kirshner putting that no reclaim fee on that board there at Whitson and Floral. That, I'm sure that helped. Congratulations to the Fresno County, speaking of animals, Board of Supervisors for passing a 5-0 vote to buy land for the new $5 million animal shelter, Fresno County. I thought that was a lot of vision there. Let's see. I had a citizen request me to look into signage at Dinuba and Golden State Boulevard. They said there was, a couple years ago, there had been an issue there, an accident, maybe a fatality. So I know that that's part of the Golden State Boulevard project. So I went back to Tony Boren and Peggy Arnest of the Council of Governments, the COG, because they're the ones putting on the Golden State Corridor construction project, and I'll get an update on that from them as to the feasibility. You know, I don't know if it's city limits. It looks like it's a gray area there, but I don't see why, if they're going to put signage in there, why they couldn't pay for it as part of the Golden State Corridor project. Mario Santoyo is holding a meeting with the California Agricultural Secretary on July 26th at Fowler City Hall at 2 p.m. Any council members want to go, they're invited. Just need to let Mario know. the Selma Healthcare District is having their quarterly meeting tomorrow night at 5:30 at the Senior Center. They do lots of great things for nonprofits in the area and fund a lot of causes like school teams for their uniforms and pads and things that keep people safe. So I appreciate what that board does. I followed up and requested Caltrans, based on a citizen issue, to clean the homeless encampment at the area south of the Rose Garden. It's Caltrans. It's right there at 99 and 43, the on-ramp. And so I was told that Caltrans, I followed up yesterday, Caltrans, actually on a Sunday, and she got back to me, that there was, Caltrans now has a hazmat contractor, a third-party contractor, go out and do all their cleanings of homeless encampments. So, and they're backed up, but they said we're on the list in 2 weeks. So you did you hear that too? Okay.
In the mail, huh?
It's better than nothing, but it's just a change in their process of handling homeless encampments, and they're popping up everywhere. It's just one goes, we clean one up, and then another one pops up. But that's definitely a citizen request for service for our part. On July 5th, the California legislature passed AB 101, which is a trailer bill, which the governor signed last week. I think I brought it up during an earlier topic. Senator Hurtado was kind enough to call me before it passed and talk to me about the issues in there. It clarifies the punitive measures of having a housing element that's not in compliance, really puts it in the courts. It delinks the SB1 transportation money, so that's off the table to penalize cities without a compliant housing element. And it looks like it's going after the larger offenders on that. So I think as long as the city just keeps making progress with that consultant to get those regional housing need allocation numbers up, we should be okay. And I'll end it with a quote from Adam Smith that says, "Every person, as long as he or she does not violate the laws of justice, is left perfectly free to pursue his or her own interest in his or her own way, and to bring both his or her industry and capital into competition with those of any other person." And with that, we'll ask for any more public comment tonight. Does anybody have anything else to say?
Teresa Salas, 3221 Lee. I told him this once in private, and I'd like to tell him in public. I really commend your fire chief, Chief Peterson. He is on the ball. He is proactive. He's very professional. He is just, I can't think of enough adjectives, but he's a good guy. And I commend you all for giving him the promotion. It's well-deserved, and he's really earned his title.
Great, thank you. And you were very busy on the 3rd and 4th of July, Chief. Thanks for all the good work. Appreciate that. Saw you out there at the 3rd, the fireworks. So that was a long night for you, I could tell. Thanks for your service.
Bob Allen, Executive Director of the Selma Chamber, 1821 Tucker Street. Several things have happened. Last week, we started our Movies in the Park. We had about 110 people there. This event is an all-free event to the community, and it's sponsored by PG&E. They gave us a nice little grant to do 2 movies in the park. We'll do another one on the 26th. This last Friday, we had a train that took the kids around the park, and we had an obstacle course as well as some popcorn and some fruit for them. And the Francos did the popcorn for us always. We appreciate that. It was a great evening, and it cooled down a little. Our next one will be and we showed Smallfoot. So I would have let you see it, but I sent it back this morning. On the 26th, we're seeing Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse. And I'm sure you all want to come out to that one. And we're going to, I think the fire department and the police department are helping us with that event. And the kids will love that. And then we'll have food and popcorn and the fruit again to make sure that everyone has something for the evening. And these events, again, are all free. On Wednesday, I invite all of you, I'm sure you've seen the flyer already, to the mixer at United Health Center. We're excited to have this. As you know, we had a ribbon cutting to open their business in Selma this year, and so it's kind of nice to go back and see what's happened and transpired and see what they have added. So a Wednesday night at 5 o'clock at United Health Center on Highland Avenue. We also will be having a ribbon cutting on July 23rd for our new remodeled McDonald's. If you haven't had an opportunity to go in there yet, it's a much improved image. We don't feel like we're in a maze when we walk in. It's nice and open and pleasant and great. So we're going to do a ribbon cutting for them on the 23rd. I think that is all we have going on this month.
Bob, on the ribbon cutting at McDonald's, what time?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Just want to know, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Breakfast hour.
10
don't worry.
o'clock.
Just want to know.
We'll have refreshments, and they are a member of our chamber and have been for several years, and we appreciate them being in the community, so we wanted to showcase them as they opened up a new remodeled building. So thank you very much. We appreciate all you do and hope you come out.
Thank you.
And just July 3rd. Scott, thanks for being there. It was a little bit different for all of us who worked that night. The logistics were a little different, but overall, we found out things that we never knew before, like we used Huntsman and Thompson parking, a vacant lot for our parking. Apparently, we didn't make everybody happy with that because apparently in the past, some people have taken their cars and set up barbecues, and they've watched the fireworks for free. So this year they had to pay at least $2. Many of them stayed in their car and had their little refreshments in the parking, but we at least collected $2 from them. And the weather cooled down, and we had a great evening, and the fireworks, Pyro Spectacular, who do our fireworks, always do a superb job. And we have people coming all over the county. We have people from down south that come to this every year. I met a gentleman from Hanford who said this was his 7th year that he has visited, and they love coming to it. And after the event was over, he came up to me and said, again, a great job. So it's always nice to come together and join in as a community and celebrate all of that we have in common. So it's a great event. So thank you again. And the city, Michael, helps put that on, and so it is truly a community event. So we thank you, all of your support.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? We are adjourned.